Trump's final offer to resolve the Ukraine conflict?
This is considered the most significant effort by President Donald Trump's administration to end the conflict in Ukraine, but it appears to have received little positive response from Kyiv. The Trump administration presented Ukraine with a proposal described as a final offer to bring an end to the war that has lasted more than 3 years, according to Axios on April 22nd, citing sources familiar with the negotiations. However, the Kremlin warned the public to rely only on official sources when following developments in the peace talks. According to Axios, the proposal was drafted on a one-page document based on a 4-hour meeting earlier this month between Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The document was later delivered to Ukrainian officials in Paris last week. As outlined in the proposal, the US would be prepared to legally recognize Crimea as Russian territory. Washington would also tacitly acknowledge Moscow's de facto control over Russian-held areas in Donetsk, Kherson, Luhansk, and Zaporizhzhia. Additionally, the US proposal includes the possibility of lifting Western sanctions imposed on Russia since 2014 and expanding bilateral economic cooperation. Washington also pledged to formally oppose Ukraine's accession to NATO. In return, Ukraine would be guaranteed robust security from a coalition of European nations and other like-minded countries, although specific details on how this would be implemented remain unclear. Russia has repeatedly opposed any form of NATO military presence in Ukraine, regardless of its official designation. The plan also promises to ensure Ukraine's unrestricted access to the Dnipro River, a strategic waterway, as well as the potential for reconstruction support from the international community, though no clear funding sources have been outlined. Another provision in the proposal would designate the area surrounding the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as a neutral zone under US oversight. In addition, Trump is reportedly hoping to finalize a minerals agreement between the US and Ukraine this week, according to Axios. Washington is hoping to receive an official response from Kyiv at a multilateral meeting scheduled to take place in London on April 23rd.
Zelensky and EU react to the possibility of the US recognizing Crimea as Russian territory.
Ukraine and the European Union, EU, have jointly opposed the possibility of the US recognizing Crimea as part of Russia. On April 22nd, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky declared that Ukraine would never legally recognize the Crimean Peninsula as Russian territory under any circumstances. There is nothing to discuss. It violates our constitution. This is our land, the land of the Ukrainian people, Zelensky stated at a press conference in Kyiv. The statement comes amid reports that the US is considering recognizing Crimea as Russian territory as part of a proposal to end the conflict in Ukraine. Zelensky warned that any discussion regarding Crimea could push negotiations into a trap set by the Kremlin, ultimately prolonging the war. The moment talks begin about Crimea and our sovereign territories, the negotiation process will follow the path Russia wants. One that drags out the conflict, he added. The Ukrainian president noted that Kyiv had seen signals regarding Crimea emerge through various channels, but firmly stated that Ukraine would immediately reject any official proposal of that nature. We know where these signals are coming from, and they will likely continue, Zelensky said, expressing suspicion that they may originate either from Russia or from certain US representatives engaged in dialogue with President Putin. Speaking to AFP on April 22nd, the European Union's top foreign policy official, Kaja Kallas, declared that the EU would never recognize Crimea as Russian territory. Her statement came amid reports that the US is considering recognizing Crimea as part of Russia in a bid to find a resolution to the ongoing conflict. Crimea belongs to Ukraine, Callas affirmed. She also emphasized that Washington should increase pressure on Moscow rather than conceding to the Kremlin's demands. The US has tools to exert pressure on Russia, but it hasn't fully used them, she said. If the US now pulls back without applying those tools, my biggest question is, why? Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov on April 21st expressed skepticism over the credibility of anonymous source reports in Western media. There is a lot of information being circulated right now, but a peaceful resolution cannot be reached through public negotiations. Statements from anonymous sources must be approached with the utmost caution, Peskov stressed.